Hi everyone, welcome to week 8 in English 102. I wanted to make a short video kind of walking you through drafting the ethnographies that are going to be due at the end of this week. This is really the culmination of the last 7 to 8 weeks of our semester. So a really important sort of, I think, a very closure-filled piece. This is where all of those puzzle pieces start to fill in and fit together. So let's go ahead and get started. Before I get into your drafts, I wanted to kind of plug a scholarship that we offer at the Granite City campus. So I teach full-time at the Granite City campus currently, and we have a scholarship that's offered each semester if you have taken classes at the SWIT Granite City campus or are currently taking classes, then you are eligible for this scholarship. All you have to do is complete a foundation scholarship application on eStorm and then submit an original essay from either English 101 or English 102. You can submit an essay by emailing me or by dropping one off in room 206 at Granite. It's just a really great opportunity. It's essentially a writing contest. So if you have an essay that you're like, I think this has a shot, I fully encourage you to apply, all right? And 2 people are chosen each semester to receive $500. No strings attached. We just mail a check to your house and we're like, hey, great job on that great writing. So if you're interested, the applications are due March 30th. So we have a few weeks to kind of think about that and get those submitted. So now that I've plugged the scholarship, let's get into the assignments for this week. So your ethnography draft is going to be due Sunday. You do not have a discussion board this week, and there's nothing else besides the readings for this week. So I really want you to focus on doing the readings, gathering all of your information together, and working on drafting this essay. So talking about the drafts, this information is all from the assignment sheet, so that is also linked in our week 8 folder. But the goal of this draft is to kind of bring all of the pieces we've looked at so far, your ethnography proposal, your annotated bib, your primary research, and bring these together into a draft. So I do recommend that you revisit those pieces of your project before you work on your draft, because you really want to see, okay, here's where I started, and then thinking through all of these pieces of information you've gathered, here's where I'm now at. This draft should be between 6 and 8 pages, and I know that might sound like a lot, but in all honesty, we've already written the background, the research questions, the methodology, so you've already written a couple pages. You've already got your references, so really it's just the kind of findings that you want to work on. But mainly your ethnography is going to answer the question, now that you've gathered this information, what are your thoughts or your understanding of this local culture? So don't forget, we also did working thesis statements in our discussion board in week 7, so use those to kind of propel the findings section forward. All right, the pieces of your draft are going to be in APA, and they're going to include a background on this culture, your research questions and how they've developed, the methodology, which is just a fancy way of saying how did you do your research. So where did you find your sources? Why did you look there? How did you do your primary research and why? And then the last section is probably the most important. It's called the findings. So this section is probably going to feel most like a traditional research paper. You're going to start with a paragraph that introduces your research. You're going to give your working thesis at the end of that paragraph, and then you're going to spend the next several pages supporting that working thesis with the sources you found with your primary research. And then finally, you're going to have a references section, which hopefully we've already gathered. And I also made a note for myself. I will post some information on citing primary sources so that we have that for either your survey or your interview. So if you're not really sure where to start, there are a couple ethnography samples under our readings in week 8. Choose one of these to look over and kind of ask yourself, okay, how did this student do it? And do I want to do anything similar? Or do I like this part? Maybe I'll try something else here. The samples are really there just to give you an idea, but your writing should not look the exact same. And also don't feel like these are the epitome of ethnography writing. They're great drafts, but there is not one way to do this. So trust yourself, trust your project, trust your sources, and really I want this to be your perspective not what you think someone else would write. So use the samples to help you, but don't necessarily copy them, you know? So one thing you want to think about while you're working on these drafts is how you're going to organize your sources. So again, revisit the pieces that you've already written for our projects. Then ask yourself, how do your sources kind of compare to each other? How do they fit together? Which source should you talk about first? Which would come last? Where is your primary research going to fit? This is really like the outline that I posted last week. Maybe revisit that. And or even I've also found it helpful to just print out your annotated bib, your primary research, your proposal, and then literally number them in the order you want to use them in your draft. Whatever way you organize is going to be fine. Just make sure that you organize somehow. You don't want to just sit down at your computer on Sunday night and be like, all right, we are drafting, without having revisited all of these pieces, because we've done 7 weeks of research and it's going to take more than just an hour to kind of think through what you want to say. So another thing that's going to help, the readings for this week. There is a Right Here, Right Now chapter and a short piece called Joining the Conversation. This is a really great reading because it discusses how you can kind of incorporate sources into your ideas, but in a way that's balanced. So I like to imagine writing a research paper as me and each of the sources I've found. Imagine they're each people, right? And we're sitting around a table having a conversation. Now, what you don't want is one person talking way too much and dominating that conversation. But also what you don't want is all of you being silent, because that's not a conversation at all. A conversation is a back and forth, a give and take between some of this source and some of that one and some of me. There's a balance in this arrangement that you want to think about. So the Joining the Conversation reading is very helpful, I think, in sort of visualizing what that looks like. So your draft is going to be due Sunday. Once you've turned that in, you, my friend, are on spring break. Woo! After spring break, we will work on revising these drafts for a final draft, and then we will be finished with our first project in English 102. You guys should be really proud of how far you've come, and I'm looking forward to reading your drafts over spring break and getting an idea of how you're kind of understanding these ethnographies. So if you have any questions over the course of this week, please, please, please let me know. I am available pretty much all the time. But if you run into any issues, reach out, and otherwise have a wonderful spring break, and I will see you when we get back.